Well, one of the biggest threats to Justin Trudeau over the past few months has been the unity that we were seeing among Canadians coming together of all religious stripes, saying down with these woke politics of the Justin Trudeau government, the dictatorial censorship, the woke policies pushing gender ideology in schools, all of it. Canada has been transformed by the Trudeau government. But where has Justin Trudeau been over the past few days? Is the turmoil in the Middle East maybe perfect cover for these woke policies to resurface in Canada? David Creighton is a journalist, writes at the Post Millennial. He also has a YouTube channel, Creighton's Right. Been following the Trudeau government. And David, I just want to get your take on this. Over the past few days, it seems the turmoil in the Middle East, Trudeau has been relatively quiet, although he did come out yesterday and start talking about how this affects all Canadians. So what do you make of how this is going to affect Canada now with a lot of the pushback that we were seeing against Trudeau over the past few months?
Well, this couldn't have come at a more opportune moment for Justin Trudeau, because he had seen forces that he had never imagined align against him. We had Muslim Canadians, Jewish Canadians, Christian Canadians, people of all faiths saying enough of his woke ideology. They specifically were coming out against gender ideology in the schools. We had 1.5 million people participating in a march on September 20th. So what happens? We have a major distraction now. Now, up until now, every time Trudeau wants to distract from domestic policies, he invites Zelensky to come to Canada, or he goes to Ukraine and has a love-in with Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, and he dispenses with another $500 million or another $1 billion. And that's how Trudeau has been distracting Canadians. Now he has the war in the Mideast. And if you dare to question that as being the first priority of this country, he will be branding you and demonizing you, perhaps as a terrorist, perhaps as a hateful person. He's already done that. He's already branded parents who think they should have a right to raise their children as hateful. Now this is an open field, and I think you would agree that this war is an excellent distraction for woke leaders. I use that in quotation marks.
Well, we see this in the United States, right? We have a southern border invasion in the United States, tens of thousands of illegal immigrants pouring across the southern border, and yet we're sending $10 billion now, additional $1 billion to Israel to protect Israel. That's where this money is going, on top of the hundreds of billions that we've sent to Ukraine. So I've said it multiple times. We are being played. We are being totally fooled, and it's happening right before our eyes. And Canada is no different. He spoke yesterday in Parliament. He spoke at first in French. What I saw is in French, so I don't understand French. But he was specifically focusing on the Middle East. This was the main point of his conversation there yesterday, right?
Well, exactly. He didn't show up for question period yesterday, which is normal for him lately. He rarely shows up for question period. He had the deputy prime minister, Chrystia Freeland. She's the one with the Nazi connections in the family, by the way, spouting off about Israel, which is totally ironic. But Trudeau now is completely focused on Israel and the war in the Mideast. Of course, he has to be, because he has a seat in Montreal. And if he doesn't look very concerned with Israel, there's a large Jewish community in his backyard that will hold him accountable. So there's a very raw political advantage for this in Trudeau. But the larger scheme here is that he can use this to say, let's not talk about gender ideology in the schools. Let's not talk about the euthanasia program I have running that's going to include the mentally ill in the very near future, and that includes people who just feel depressed right now. Or how about abortion on demand up to the last minute? How about the other policies that are killing Canada, like the anti-free speech policies, his censorship policies, which he's about to push through the third part of? So this is an excellent opportunity for Justin Trudeau to say, let's just talk about Israel. And in fact, if you watched question period yesterday, every time a question arose about the next budget, about Canada's fiscal catastrophe, the answer was, well, we should be looking at Israel, because this is the first time we've sat down since the invasion. They were off for a week. let's just talk about Israel today, because that's the only thing that matters.
Well, that's like what Janet Yellen just said, the Treasury Secretary of the United States. We can fight these two wars, even though we can't afford it. We're wildly in debt, massively in debt, $33 trillion. Canada, Justin Trudeau's government has massively expanded the money supply in Canada, devaluing the currency by all accounts and runaway inflation. And of course, this is what the opposition is really targeting in Canada, that we're going to restrict that spending, actually have a balanced budget, get this spending back and reined in and under control. I guess what I'm concerned about specifically for Canadians, of course, are the things that are currently moving through Parliament that Trudeau has been pushing for, hoping that you won't talk about, hoping you won't shine a light on, censorship, etc. So what current things, you mentioned the censorship bill, what current things are right now being voted on, about to be pushed through, that they can use Israel as a distraction to push through and clamp down on? By the way, this is not a conspiracy theory. I mean, this is exactly what happened after 9/11. You take away people's freedoms, and you do it under the auspices of Middle East turmoil right now, or protection of Israel. This is a way to protect all Canadians. We're going to take away your civil liberties.
Yeah, well, yeah. And the first thing, the most important thing that's happened as a result of this war in the Mideast is the cancellation of the second million-person march this Saturday. I just discovered this morning from the organizer, who I talked to early this morning, he has decided to cancel this march because there is so much division amongst his organizers, amongst the participants. He's concerned it will break down into violence, that it could become disordered because of all of the disagreement over the Mideast. People are focused on the wrong things. They're not focused on domestic policy. They're focused on things they cannot control, such as Israeli policy and Mideast policy. But what is Trudeau poised to pass? And this is what people are missing, is because, yes, he has a lot of very evil policies that are already in effect, such as euthanasia and such as the gender ideology, which is seeped in through all the school systems throughout Canada. But he is poised to pass phase 3 of his internet censorship bill. And I can't overemphasize how dangerous this is. The bill will be coming up in this fall session. And if it's not defeated, in Canada, like Great Britain, we will have an online safety bill that makes disinformation illegal. They will begin arresting journalists for producing news that the government disagrees with, because the bill will not define what disinformation is. So it will mean whatever the government decides it is. And that could be anything contrary to Justin Trudeau or his government. And that's the danger here, is while we're focused on Israel, while we're focused on, my God, what is becoming World War III, that and Ukraine, we're going to have domestic policies that are totally undermining freedom in Canada.
Well, as a famous Democrat once said, never let a good crisis go to waste, right? And that's exactly what you're seeing unfolding before us right now. And that's why we're trying to shine a light on it on our show, because we're all being played. We are all being played. And all of these things are happening behind the scenes that we don't get to see. And they are going to take away our civil liberties. They are going to continue to push these things on us. And they're going to do it quietly under the auspices of protection. We're doing it to protect you.
If I can just say one thing, when I first learned about this Hamas invasion of Israel, my first concern was, my God, we don't need another war in the Middle East. My second concern was, what's going to happen to the religious unity we have in Canada, and to some extent was developing in the United States and other European countries. What's going to happen to that? It's going to be totally smothered by this war. And, my God, we are creeping ever closer to a nuclear catastrophe.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. It's not hyperbole at all. In fact, we saw, and just on the Canadian side of this, we saw Muslims who were the most outspoken, of course, against this gender ideology in schools. Keep your hands off our children in schools, right? Keep your hands off our children. And that was a rallying cry, right? To come together around children. Keep this away from us. Christians finally were standing up and saying, yes, okay, you know what, Muslims, you were out there really first speaking about this. We're standing side by side with you. We're coming together. Jews, we're standing side by side with you. We're all coming together. We can stand against this. Now they cancel this million-person march, the second one of these, because of this. So this is just the tip of the iceberg for what we're about to see. David Creighton in Canada, thank you so much for your perspective up there. We really, really appreciate it as always.
Thank you, Clayton. I'm so glad that you're back in good health.